Impeachment trial of suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol has held its first hearing. These here are live pictures outside the presidential palace where anti-government protesters have gathered. Mr. Yoon did not attend the hearing. He is facing charges over his failed attempt of imposing martial law, plunging the country into its deepest political crisis in decades. The court will decide if his actions violated the constitution and amounted to insurrection. Well, let's speak to our correspondent Shaima Halil, who's following developments from Tokyo for us. And Shaima, so Mr. Yoon did not attend the hearing. This was expected. But what happens next?
As expected, Yoon Suk-yeol did not attend the first impeachment hearing. His lawyers have told us that, citing safety concerns and other objections that they had about the logistics of the hearings. It lasted about 4 minutes. It was very, very quick. Essentially, it was the marking of the start of the impeachment trial procedures. We are expecting another hearing later this week. This, as protesters and anti-Yoon protesters continue to gather outside the presidential palace. What the Constitutional Court has to decide is whether the declaration of martial law by Yoon Suk-yeol early in December was unconstitutional and whether it was illegal. And it has many weeks, even months, to decide that. It has about 5 months now that the hearings have started. It could drag out, but they are under pressure to make a quick decision because of the instability that South Korea finds itself in. This comes after a month of Parliament deciding to vote to impeach the president after he declared martial law and then withdrew that very, very quickly. If the impeachment is upheld, then Yoon Suk-yeol is out of power, and that will trigger a snap election that will have to be done within 60 days. If it's not, if it's dismissed, he is reinstated and he is back in power. That will not go down well, neither with the opposition, not with many members of the public who again continue to gather outside his presidential palace, expressing their anger about what happened early December. But remember, apart from the trial, Yoon is also facing criminal investigations for alleged insurrection and abuse of power, both related to the martial law declaration on December 3rd. Investigators and the police are attempting for a second time to arrest the president. Today, there was a meeting between the police and a group from the corruption investigation office. They met with the presidential security service. What they're trying to do is they're trying to avoid another standoff like the one that happened earlier this month. The first time the investigators and police tried to arrest the president, there were extraordinary scenes where they were trying to get close to the presidential residence, and they were blocked essentially by a wall of people from the presidential security guards. They're trying to avoid that. One official today said to the press, to local media, that the priority is to avoid clashes, to avoid bloodshed, because remember, the police also had to manage the crowds outside the presidential compound of Yoon supporters. So these two big things are happening in tandem. They could drag on for weeks, or they could happen really quickly. But right now, South Korea continues to find itself in this instability and continuing political turmoil.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Let's take you straight to South Korea, to breaking news there, where police have surrounded the impeached president's home. It appears...
Got some breaking news here. We're going to go talk about the South Korean President Yoon, and then we have Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing. I'm going to play some, not really clips, but really just some of the hearing. I thought it was very interesting. I could not live stream it, unfortunately. I was like super busy today, but I was listening to it, so I definitely have some thoughts. But anyway, it's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. It's Kiwtbnews. Got some breaking news here. We have a second attempt to arrest the South Korean President Yoon. Let's go see what's going on here. It's the Sky News.
Is to be a fresh attempt to arrest Yoon Suk-yeol over his short-lived attempt to impose martial law. That happened on December the 3rd, that effort of him to declare martial law. A month later, on January the 3rd, investigators were foiled from serving the first ever arrest warrant issued against a sitting South Korean president after a standoff with hundreds of presidential security agents and military guards. Same thing is happening once again. Video footage showing vehicles from the investigating authorities in front of Yoon's hillside villa in Seoul, the capital, where he's been holed up for weeks. Some 6,500 supporters of Yoon gathered at the residence, and some ruling party politicians too, forming a human chain to block the execution of that arrest warrant, according to the Yonhap news agency. Let's get the very latest then, shall we, from our Asia correspondent, Nicole Johnston. You know, take two more efforts to execute this arrest warrant, Nicole, not proving successful again by the look of it.
Well, not yet, but it's early hours. All of this taking place very early in the morning in South Korea. Dramatic developments and incredible pictures are coming out of the chaos on the scene there. As you said, thousands of supporters of the former president, Yoon Suk-yeol, are gathered outside of his residential home, showing their support, attempting to block this attempt to execute the arrest warrant by the police and by security services. But the former president also has the support of his own security services. And that is the big concern there, that this could descend into some kind of conflict on the streets with both sides facing off against each other. We're already starting to see scuffles and skirmishes break out. We know that there are riot police there as well to get involved if things do start to get under control, out of control, that is. We've also just heard reports that
that slip up, though.
Those police and investigators are trying to enter through a variety of different entrances, but it really is a standoff right now, and we'll have to wait and see how it develops. As you said, all of this goes to show the great deal of uncertainty that is still gripping South Korea at the moment, ever since the former president attempted to impose martial law. It only lasted a few hours. But now South Korea is still in a very difficult situation, potentially for months to come.
Yes, it's been incredibly destabilising, hasn't it? Nicole, thank you very much indeed. The Corruption Investigation Office secured a reissued warrant on January the 7th for his arrest. The head of that organisation has said authorities would do whatever it takes to bring Yoon into custody. So we'll certainly watch those pictures in the hours ahead.
Okay, so I got an article here. Actually, let's go check this out real quick. Let's get an update on what's going on here. This is what Reuters, right? Yeah, that was a lot of people to be out there. It was a lot of people to be out there trying to arrest this guy. And then he has his own private security, or private police. Interesting. I mean, nothing's really going on now. Oh, snap. What's going on here? Of course, it cuts out as soon as you see these vehicles pull up. Look at this guy. What's going on? So what? This is the compound going up here, and this is the outside, right? Where are these vehicles pulling up? So who is this? Yeah, it cuts out when these vehicles come out. Interesting. That's so weird. And that was just a little bit ago, huh? Okay, so they got some people coming out now. What? We got music going on. Okay. I don't know who those people were. We'll have to get some more information here. We got the AP. Let's pull up here. See what we have. Let me jump on camera. What's up? What's up? The AP has South Korean law enforcement officials enter presidential compound to detain impeached Yoon, and they just dropped this a little bit ago. Are they? Yeah, like an hour and a half ago or something like that. Everyone's got the all black on. Like, that's how you know that they're a part of somebody, because everyone's got their regular colored jackets and stuff like that. These people's wearing all black. That's crazy. Police officers stand in front of the gate of the presidential residence of impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol. So this dude is impeached, and they're trying to get him out of here, but he's like, no. That's crazy. It's already Wednesday, January the 15th over there. Seoul, South Korea. Hundreds of law enforcement officials in South Korea enter the residential compound of impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol earlier Wednesday in the capital of Seoul. It was their second attempt to detain him over his imposition of martial law last month. We gotta look into that. I feel like I did a video, or I was gonna do one, and I felt like it wasn't gonna go anywhere. It seems like they're really, really serious about this. They really do not want this guy to be the president there. We definitely gotta look into that. More than 1,000 anti-corruption investigators and police officers could be deployed in potentially multi-day operation to apprehend Yoon. Like, this is crazy. What? Multi-day? Y'all can't just get him tonight? Like, what was that? Right? Who has been holed up in a Hunnam Dong residence, and that's what we just seen on that footage there. Okay. For weeks, Yoon has justified his martial law decree as a legitimate act of governance against an anti-state opposition, bogging down his agenda with its legislative majority, and vowed to, quote, fight to the end, end quote. Okay. What? Against efforts to oust him. So he's holed up in this building. It's not even like their Capitol building or their little. It's just he's held up in this private residence. That's what it sounds like to me. The corruption investigation, Office for high-ranking officials and police are jointly investigating whether Yoon's brief martial law declaration on December 3rd amounted to an attempted rebellion. Okay, so they pledged more forceful measures to detain him after the Presidential Security Service blocked their initial effort on January 3rd. Man, that's crazy. So what? They have a corruption investigation office for high-ranking officials and police are jointly investigating whether... Okay. Brief martial law declaration. Interesting. Following an hours-long standoff at the compound's gate. I mean, like, they're not firing weapons, which is, like, just great. No one's, to my understanding, is being harmed here. But, I mean, how far is that gonna, be peaceful, right? Peaceful. Anyway, standoff at the compound's gate. Anti-corruption investigators and police officers were seen moving up the hill. Okay, so that's who those people were. Police officers were earlier seen using ladders. Oh my God, that's crazy. They're trying to climb through windows to get this fool. What? Or to get this gentleman, excuse me. Man, this is nuts. Earlier seen using ladders to climb up over rows of buses placed by the Presidential Security Service near the compound's entrance. See, I should be laughing about this because I don't remember that martial law. I remember hearing about it. I feel like we did something about it, but I was like, I need to look more into that. If there was people, to my understanding, that did cause like a ruckus there, and there were some people that, like civilians, that were harmed in the process. But like, I don't know too much about this. This is at least that about this insurrection that they're trying to like put on this guy or whatever he did that day by implementing martial law. To my understanding, he felt like these people were trying to overthrow him without the proper evidence. So I could see it kind of both ways here. I need to get more details, but I digress. Let's get back into it. And anti-corruption investigators and police later arrived in front of a metal gate with a gold presidential mark. That's near Yoon's residential building. Some officers were seen entering a security door on the side of the metal gate, escorted by one of Yoon's lawyers and his chief of staff, but it wasn't immediately clear why they were being let in. The Presidential Security Service later removed a bus and other vehicles that had been parked tightly inside the gate as a barricade. Suk Dong-hyun, a lawyer for Yoon, said attorneys at the residence were negotiating with the anti-corruption agency over the possibility the president could voluntarily appear for questioning. Seok said Yoon had not been detained as of Wednesday morning. He's not detained, of Wednesday morning. It remained unclear whether law enforcement will accept the offer from Yoon's lawyers, as the president previously evaded multiple requests to appear for questioning before the agency sought court warrants for his detention. That's crazy. They got the warrants out, and he's like still evading this. Like, how is this possible? There were no immediate report on clashes. Despite a court warrant for Yoon's detention, the Presidential Security Service has insisted it's obligated to protect the impeached president and has fortified the compound with barbed wire and rows of buses blocking paths. That's crazy. So you can't even, like, you're gonna have to leave, right? Or you're gonna have to get resources from the outside, and they could just block it off so you can't get resources. That's insane. This is insane. They're putting up barbed wire. They're like, you're not like sneaking out. We're setting up a perimeter. That's insane. Wow. As tensions escalated, South Korea's acting leader, Deputy Prime Minister Choi Sang-mok, issued a statement early Wednesday urging law enforcement and presidential security service to ensure there are no physical clashes. Yeah, because I was going to say, so this guy, he's the acting leader. Since this guy, the president himself, they're like overthrowing him. He doesn't have that, or someone has to fill in for that, for this gentleman here. That's interesting. Man, this is very interesting. Good thing that no one is being harmed in this as of right now. Groups of police officers dressed in black jackets. Yeah, like I was saying, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. Well, by what these folks are wearing, and in police vehicles, including a white van, possibly the members of a search and arrest team inside, were seen in front of the presidential compound's closed metal gate. Separate goals of police officers were also seen, separate groups of police officers were also seen moving up a trekking path near the hilly compound, apparently pursuing another route. So they're like, this is insane. They can't find this way to get in, so we're going to go uphill. We're getting in. They couldn't get in the window. Yeah, what? Some police officers were later seen successfully entering the residence using ladders to climb over the rows of buses placed at the barricades. His lawyers are going to provide security. Wait, what? So the Presidential Security Service will continue to provide security for Yoon, and claim that the detainment warrant issued by Seoul Western District Court was invalid. They cited a law that protects locations potentially linked to military secrets. What? From search without the consent of a person in charge. Which would be Yoon. The court warrant for Yoon's detainment is valid through January 21st. So, what? He's just got to hold out? Man, get out of here. Is this guy gonna hold out here until the 21st? Why is it the 21st? That's like a very interesting date, right? Like, whatever, man. Lawmakers from Yoon's, because they probably had like 30 days or something like that, and they probably issued it last month, and whatever. That's just a weird date. Lawmakers from Yoon's People Power Party, along with at least one of his lawyers, were earlier seen at the residence gate, apparently arguing with anti-corruption officials and police officers attempting to enter. Lawmakers from his party, along with his lawyers, were arguing, just screaming at these police officers. That's crazy. Hey, we got, we got these documents. You got blah, blah, it's just like, that's crazy. Oh, man. Hundreds of Yoon supporters and critics helped held competing protests near the residence, one side vowing to protect him, the other calling for his imprisonment, while thousands of police officers in yellow jackets closely monitored the situation, setting up perimeters with buses. Man, these folks in their buses, in their jackets, they don't play. It's got to be cold out there, right? It's got to be cold out there right now. Yoon's top aide Tuesday pleaded with law enforcement agencies to abandon their efforts to detain him. Presidential Chief of Staff Jun Jin-suk said Yoon could instead be questioned at a third site or at his residence, and said that the anti-corruption agency and police were trying to drag him out like he was a member of the South American drug cartel. Quote, South American drug cartel, end quote. That's insane wordplay right there. It's like, come on out of here. Come on out of here there, you president, you. That's crazy. It's just like, you gotta watch letting them in there, right? You gotta be putting in freaking cameras and little secret like recording device. I don't trust nobody, right? Like at that level. I mean, if you're held up in this building like that, I don't know. I'm not trusting a lot of people to pull up in there. But if he needs to be questioned and he doesn't want to leave, I mean, they got to do something right then and there, right? Like right at the residence. Like you would think that. I don't know, but I mean, I feel like if this was America, I feel like this would have gone down a little bit differently. I digress. But Yoon Kyub-kyun, one of the president's lawyers, said Chung issued the message without consulting them, and that the legal team has no immediate plan to make the president available for questioning by investigators. Okay, if investigators manage to detain Yoon Suk-yeol, they will likely ask a court for permission to make a formal arrest and otherwise be released after 48 hours. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound... I mean, if you got to question the guy, you got to question the guy, but... okay. I'd be interested. I'm very interested to see how this all goes down, though. And will we see it? I mean, like, obviously go down before the 21st, right? If you're enjoying this video, please consider hitting the like, share, and the subscribe button. We're going over the South Korean president having a second attempt to arrest him by some of the authorities of their, like, of another political party out here, out there in South Korea. Yoon has left his official residence in Seoul for weeks, or has not left his official residence. Okay, so that is his place. Okay, he owns that whole complex. Very interesting. And the Presidential Security Service prevented dozens of investigators from detaining him after a nearly 6-hour standoff on January 3rd. The National Police Agency has convened multiple meetings of field commanders in Seoul and nearby Gyeonggi, I think that's how you pronounce that. I apologize if I mispronounce that. Province in recent days to plan their detainment efforts, and the size of those forces fueled speculation that more than 1,000 officers could be deployed in possible multi-day operations. The agency and police have openly warned that presidential bodyguards obstructing the execution of a warrant could be arrested. That's crazy work. Yoon declared martial law and deployed troops around the National Assembly on December 3rd. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of some context about what exactly did he do on this specific day, dealing with this martial law that he had to declare. It lasted only hours before lawmakers managed to get through the blockade and vote to lift the measure. I think I was kind of privy to this. It's just like this whole news cycle, like the beginning of this year of 2025 has just been insane. It's been really tough for me to keep up with everything. That's why it's like we're not doing all these videos every single day. It's just so much. Shout out to like Steve Ram and Marfugal News and like a few other people, like or a bunch of other people that like do this like on a consistent basis, like Officer Tatum and the Daily Wire, Tim Pool, the Quartering, the Quartercast, and Sticks and Hammer, and a bunch of other folks. They're doing this like consistently. It's just really overwhelming to be able to keep up with everything. So anyway, Yoon's presidential powers were suspended when the opposition-dominated assembly voted to impeach him on December 14th, accusing him of rebellion. His fate now rests with the Constitutional Court, which has begun deliberating on whether to formally remove Yoon from office or reject the charges and reinstate him. In preventing Yoon's detention on January 3rd, presidential bodyguards were assisted by troops assigned to guard the presidential residence under the command of presidential security. Under the command of Presidential Security Service. However, Defense Ministry spokesperson Lee Kyung-ho, I think that's how you pronounce it, said Tuesday the troops will no longer participate in efforts to block the execution of Yoon's detention warrant and will focus solely on guarding the compound's perimeter. So this was Kim Tong Hyung. Shout out to this individual for this article. I thought that was very informative. It sounds like, shout out to the AP, sounds like this guy, he needs to sit down with this opposite side that doesn't like him or that seeks to get him out of there. And he needs to speak up for whatever this whole issue was with this martial law situation that was going on there. And then any of the damages or any of the people that were hurt, I mean, definitely needs to be responsible for that. And I'm sure loss of earnings and all that other stuff may have occurred during said martial law. But yeah, gotta hold this guy accountable. He needs to sit down and speak up for all this. Why is he waiting? It's just so weird that it's on the 21st that this court warrant runs out. I'm not too familiar how the laws work over there. Like, did they just do this in like the past week, or was this like? Well, they did this when he did the January 3rd. We'll call it January 3rd for these folks, or I'm sure that's what they're calling it, right? The little January 3 thing here. They initiated at that point, and then, or before that, and then he said he declared martial law, and then they were like, "My man, we got some warrants for you," and then he just goes right to this place that he's held up at, and it seems like he's kind of just waiting it out here. I mean, I'm sorry, I have a very minuscule viewpoint on it, because I'm not from South Korea. I don't have a lot of information about the politics over there, but to my understanding, this guy is I don't know, not like a Republican, he's more on like a conservative side, and it seems like the folks that are I guess opposing him have a more liberal or like a democratic side over there. So as to what I'm saying, if there's any truth to that, there's gonna be issues. So, I mean, that just speaks for itself. There's gonna be different viewpoints, and I mean, if one side is super like, we're getting you, and he's just like, no, I'm gonna defend myself, and I think this way. You can see why this is happening here, but the use of this martial law is very worrisome, because I've never heard of this being implemented in South Korea with my very limited knowledge of the country. So. Very interesting. So anyway, I'll leave the links for all this stuff in the description below. I'll try to keep you folks updated with this. I'm very intrigued with this now. I want to do a little bit more research, and we'll be back with more. Hopefully we can get some answers. Okay. So, all right, let's get to the other part of this. Let's see. Why is Aspen cool? Ashes of creation, talking that. Okay, so shout out to Pete Hegseth. I'll get a picture of him here, and then we'll get right into this. It might be a little long. I'm gonna try to keep this condensed down. It was like 4 hours. I'm not gonna be sitting there. I'm not gonna have us sitting here for like 4 hours. I'll try to get this within like 40 minutes here. We'll try to just go through these different parts of the hearing for Pete Hegseth. He is the United States Defense Secretary nomination for 2025. He's gonna be I'm hoping, got my fingers crossed here, fingers crossed that he becomes Secretary of Defense. So real quick here, he's an American television presenter. He's on Fox News. He was also in the Army National Guard here. So it says that he's an American television presenter here on Google, or Google is saying that. He's an author. This book, I got to look into that book, because they were talking about it at the hearing, or he was talking about it during the hearing, and then they had obviously read his book, some of these senators, and then they had stuff to say about his book. So anyway, and former Army National Guard officer, President-elect Donald Trump has nominated Hegseth to serve as United States Secretary of Defense in his second cabinet. And this is the information about Pete Hegseth. There was some issues with infidelity that they're trying to, I guess, that he's had some issues with, and they do bring up in this court hearing. So he's been married 3 times. I'm not holding that against him. Just want to bring that up, and it shows that he does have two kids. Or 2 children. Some folks during the hearing has brought up, I forgot what senator brought up his specific like family. They're really hammering onto this gentleman here with a lot of tough questions. There's a lot of accusations and stuff like that being thrown out there. But anyway, and he did bring up that he went to Princeton and he went to Harvard. That's very interesting. I did not know he went to both. But he was a Army National Guard officer. So at some point he went into he went to get his degree while he was in the military to become an officer and stuff like that. So, very interesting. Very interesting. Gentlemen, I think, me personally, after seeing how he handled the hearing today, I'll just get right into it. Before we even get to the whole video, I think he did a pretty good job. I thought it was he had a lot of tough questions, and the senators definitely held a fire to a lot of the, I guess, skeletons in his closet, or a lot of the negative accusations, I would say, towards him. I mean, there's like a microscope. Every single thing that he's done in his life, like these folks have, they're picking through it. And you have to be a tough cookie. You got to be a tough person, tough individual, a strong person to be able to sit there, clear, cool, calm, and collective when these folks are just live TV in front of all these people, who have served in the military, they've served in the government for however long, under multiple, administrations. They've seen so many and done this, of approving and questioning all these different candidates to lead in these different roles in our country. I mean, like, wow. You kind of see the dog and pony show during this, but I thought he handled himself the best that he could. I thought it was really well handled. I think the guy, me personally, I think he's pretty capable of being SecDef. We'll have to see, though. You know what I mean? I'm hearing that there's some more meetings and stuff, and there's another vote that they'll have to do or something like that in the next week or two, and then they'll finally come to that conclusion, and then they'll vote on him, to my understanding. I think Pam Bondi is tomorrow, but today was Pete Hegseth's day to have his hearing. I think this is the big chunk of it. But I thought he handled himself really well. We're going to watch some of it here, but I figured that I'd just get into a little bit of what I know about Pete Hegseth, and I could give a little bit of some context to the viewers who don't know who Pete Hegseth is. So I thought he did a good job, man. It's insane. I wouldn't be able to hold my composure as well as this gentleman held his composure and gave clear, concise answers, the best that he could to the answers that he thought that he could answer. You know what I mean? Some of these people are vicious. Vicious. Yep. I was like, wow. these people, man, you are being scrutinized to the T, folks, to the T. So anyway, I have this video here. We're gonna go check this out. I can't believe that this was a 4.5. I can't believe it because it's such an important job, but it is pretty insane that this was a 4.5 hour meeting, and they do these every single time a new administration comes in, to my understanding. They do these meetings and stuff like that since the formation of this government, of the United States government, and since there's been a Senate, wow, it's just fascinating, American politics. So Pete Hegseth testifies at the Senate confirmation hearing. This is a live stream here from Fox News. Shout out to Fox News. This is Mr. Reed. He went into why he thought he does not think that Pete Hegseth is qualified for Secretary of Defense. I'm not going to get into that, but if you do want to go see that, I'll leave the link for this whole live stream in the description below. I do want to get into, I'll have this be the starter for the video here. And then we'll get right into it. I think this kind of explains, I think this gentleman gives I think a great introduction into who Pete Hegseth is, and then we'll go from there. So it's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. We're going over the hearing that happened today with Pete Hegseth. If you enjoy the video, please consider hitting the like, share, and the subscribe button. Let's get right into it.
Thank you, Senator Reid. And now it's my privilege and honor and pleasure to recognize two witnesses who have come forward to introduce our nominee. First, I recognize my former colleague and former Senator Norm Coleman of Minnesota for the purpose of an introduction. Norm, we are glad to see you and glad to have you back, and you are recognized for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Reid, members of the committee, my former colleagues. I'm honored to introduce a son of Minnesota to you, Pete Hegseth. As a senator from Minnesota, I spent many hours with this young man as he walked the halls of Congress advocating on behalf of America's veterans. And he is young in the best sense of the word. He is strong, focused, intelligent, incisive, a great listener, and is almost supernaturally energetic, just what we need in a Secretary of Defense in times of massive change. He is the real deal. F. Scott Fitzgerald was a writer in my city of St. Paul, and said the problem with America is that there are no second acts. He was wrong. Pete was a brave soldier, has been an able communicator, and I believe is about to begin a great second act as our Secretary of Defense. He has struggled and overcome great personal challenges. Please don't give into the cynical notion that people can't change. We need the ones who can change to lead us, to be beacons of hope, and to remind us that grace can lead us home. 4 years ago, President Biden's nominee, Lloyd Austin, a good and honorable man, received 97 votes on the floor of the Senate. And we went through the debacle of the Afghanistan withdrawal. Putin invaded Ukraine. The Houthis endanger our shipping lanes. We witnessed Israeli miracles against America's enemies in the Middle East, where the United States was more of an impediment than a help. Our recruitment numbers have sunk dramatically, and our southern border has suffered a slow but dangerous invasion. Yes, Pete Hegseth is an out-of-the-box nominee, and I say it's high time to get out of the box. One more thought. The country longs for a government of less division and more respect and dignity. My hope is that this committee hearing provides what they are asking for. Disagree? Yes. Strongly if necessary. But then come together to support the nominee, this nominee, Pete Hegseth, of the one president we have at a time, laying aside partisan politics for the essential mission of national security upon which everything else depends. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you, Norm. I do appreciate that and appreciate your presence today. I now have the honor and pleasure of introducing Congressman Waltz. I understand, Congressman, you are still a member of the House for another day or two.
Another day or two.
Okay, and I now recognize Congressman Waltz for whatever opening statement and introduction he might make.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wicker, and Chairman has a very nice ring to it, so congratulations, Ranking Member Reid, distinguished members of this committee. It is a privilege to appear before you today and urge the members of this committee to confirm Pete Hegseth as our next Secretary of Defense. And I'm not here today just to advocate on behalf of a future colleague, but to speak on behalf of someone I consider a dear friend for over a decade now. Like Pete, I served in the U.S. Army. Like Pete, I'm a veteran. We deployed to Afghanistan and all over the world at the height of the war on terror, which is the war of our generation. And like thousands of other warfighters, We've witnessed the hardships of war. We've experienced the loss of friends in combat. We've endured too much time away from family and friends, and no one, I can promise you this, no one hates war more than those who have had to go fight it. No one does. Pete's story, though, isn't that much different from the millions of other veterans, and they know it, and they appreciate him for the experiences that he's gone through. And after our country was brutally attacked on 9/11, Pete Hegseth answered the call of duty like so many others. He put the interests of this country ahead of his own. And I can tell you firsthand, as can the heroes sitting in this audience behind me, Pete's character of country, his selflessness, his duty, these are the key tenets that have shaped him into the leader that he is today. These are the traits that President Trump recognized when making the decision to nominate Pete for this critical role. He will bring the perspective of being the first Secretary of Defense to have served as a junior officer on the front lines, not in the headquarters, on the front lines in the war on terror, and recognizes the human costs, the financial costs, and the policy drift that was discussed often in this very room that led us to decades and decades of war. So not only does he understand the threats he faces, but as the chairman mentioned, he is brilliant, in my mind, at communicating those to the American people in a way that is often not communicated in Washington, D.C., to reach out to the American people so that they understand why the military needs to do what it needs to do. And look, I have no doubt that he is going to get the Pentagon back to its primary mission, lethal readiness. That warrior ethos is what our enemies will respect. That warrior ethos is what our enemies will fear. And it's that warrior ethos that will keep the peace. And so, look, ladies and gentlemen, in my humble opinion, our military deserves better than it's getting. Our country faces a devastating recruitment crisis. Men and women are not volunteering to serve at the levels required. Our readiness is down. Our costs are up. And it seems like nearly every major weapon system, again, often discussed in this very room, is costing too much, delivering too little, and taking way too long. The bottom line is the status quo is unacceptable. It's not working. And the members of this committee, you all know it. You know it's not working. And the members of the House Armed Services know it's not working. And we have hearing after hearing, year after year. And here we are decades later describing the same problems. The Pentagon has continuously failed audits. The businesses that want to do business with the Pentagon have to pass an audit, but the entity itself fails an audit. Innovation is stalled, morale is down, standards have been weakened, and meritocracy is less valued. And as a result, our adversaries have been emboldened all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for change. It is time for change. You all have literally seen thousands of veterans, as the chairman cited one amazing Medal of Honor recipient. But we have seen thousands of veterans expressing their support for Pete. This is a man who can reinvigorate that warrior ethos, and this is a man that will lead. I can't imagine having a more capable partner in my position as National Security Advisor. Pete is a man of family, of faith, and he's committed to making our country strong again. And most importantly, and brother, I know this in my core, he will always have as a first principle the service members that are out there on the front lines for all of us at the heart of every decision he makes. So, senators, I urge you to support this confirmation. It is critical that President Trump has his national security team in place for the challenges ahead, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for your testimony, and I'm guessing that each and every member of this committee will want to have you on speed dial for the next few years. So thank you both. Our two guests may stay, or I know they have other engagements and responsibilities also. But thank you both for your testimony. At this point, Mr. Hegseth, I'm required to ask you as a nominee a series of questions that the committee asks all civilian nominees who appear before it. If you would, please simply respond in the affirmative or negative to each question. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes, sir.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No, sir.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes, sir.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes, sir.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes, sir.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes, sir.
All right. So at this point, Mr. Hegseth, you are recognized for your opening statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and all the members of this committee for this opportunity today. I'm grateful for and have learned a great deal from this advise and consent process. Our founders knew what they were doing. Should I be confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee, senators from both parties, to secure our nation. I want to thank the former senator from Minnesota, Norm Coleman, for his mentorship and friendship in this process, and the incoming National Security Advisor, Congressman, and more importantly for our purposes, Colonel Mike Waltz, for his powerful words. I'm grateful to them both. Thank you to my incredible wife, Jennifer, who has changed my life and been with me throughout this entire process. I love you, sweetheart, and I thank God for you. And as Jenny and I pray together every morning, all glory, regardless of the outcome, belongs to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. His grace and mercy abounds each day. May his will be done. Thank you to my father, Brian, and mother, Penny, as well as our entire family, including our 7 wonderful kids, Gunnar, Jackson, Peter Boone, Kensington, Luke, Rex, sorry, it's a lot of them, and Gwendolyn. Their future safety and security is in all of our hands. And to all the troops and veterans watching and here in the room, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, soldiers, pilots, sailors, Marines, Gold Stars, and more, too many friends to name. Officers, enlisted, black and white, young and old, men and women, all Americans, all warriors. This hearing is for you. Thank you for figuratively and literally having my back.
You are a misogynist. Not only that, you are a Christian Zionist. And you support the war in Gaza by the Zionists.
I want to thank the authorities for their swift reaction to that outburst and state that similar interruptions will be treated in like manner. Mr. Hegseth, you may continue.
Well, as I'll say again, thank you for figuratively and literally having my back. I pledge to do the same for all of you. It's an honor to come before this committee today as President Donald Trump's nominee for the office of Secretary of Defense. 2 months ago, 77 million Americans gave President Trump a powerful mandate for change, to put America first, at home and abroad. I want to thank President Trump for his faith in me and his selfless leadership for our republic. The troops have no better commander-in-chief than Donald Trump. As I've said to many of you in private meetings, when President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense. He, like me, wants a Pentagon laser-focused on lethality, meritocracy, warfighting, accountability, and readiness.
What is this lady saying? I didn't even hear like what the guy said. I seen like, what is it, footage, I forgot, from Rob Smith, and these people were in the crowd. Some fella or whoever that they go by as had this pink uniform on, like pink military, like sailor uniform or something on. This dude's over here screaming. So that must have been him. And then this lady or whoever this is screaming came in after. That's crazy.
You may continue, sir.
Returning the Pentagon back to warfighting, that's it. That's my job.
Mr. Hegseth, suspend your remarks. Let me just say this. The Capitol Police are going to remove immediately individuals that are disrupting the hearing. I see a pattern.
Just messed up this whole...
Attempted to be inflicted on the committee, and we're simply not going to tolerate that. You may proceed.
To bring back warfighting, if confirmed, I'm going to work with President Trump and this committee to, one, restore the warrior ethos to the Pentagon and throughout our fighting force. In doing so, we will reestablish trust in our military, addressing the recruiting crisis, the retention crisis, and readiness crisis in our ranks.
Members of the security force will remove members. Mr. Hegseth, you may.
The strength of our military is our unity and our shared purpose, not our differences. Number two, we're going to rebuild our military, always matching threats to capabilities. This includes reviving our defense industrial base, reforming the acquisitions process. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, no more valley of death for new defense companies, modernizing our nuclear triad, ensuring the Pentagon can pass an audit, and rapidly fielding emerging technologies. And number three, we're going to reestablish deterrence. First and foremost, we will defend our homeland, our borders, and our skies. Second, we will work with our partners and allies to deter aggression in the Indo-Pacific from the Communist Chinese. And finally, we will responsibly end wars to ensure that we prioritize our resources to reorient to larger threats. We can no longer count on reputational deterrence. We need real deterrence. The Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength. And in pursuing these America First national security goals, will remain patriotically apolitical and stridently constitutional. Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. We are American warriors. Our standards will be high and they will be equal, not equitable. That's a very different word. We need to make sure every warrior is fully qualified on their assigned weapons system, every pilot's fully qualified and current on the aircraft they are flying, and every general or flag officer is selected for leadership or promotion purely based on performance, readiness, and merit.
Meritocracy, man.
Leaders
Bring
at
it back.
all levels will be held accountable.
Bring it back.
And warfighting and lethality and the readiness of the troops and their families will be our only focus. This has been my focus ever since I first put on the uniform as a young Army ROTC cadet at Princeton University in 2001. I joined the military because I love my country and felt an obligation to defend it. I served with incredible Americans in Guantanamo Bay, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and on the streets of Washington, D.C., many of which are with me here today. This includes enlisted soldiers I helped become American citizens, and Muslim allies I helped immigrate from Iraq and Afghanistan. Because when I took off the uniform, my mission never stopped. Now, it is true and has been acknowledged that I don't have a similar biography to defense secretaries of the last 30 years. But as President Trump also told me, we've repeatedly placed people atop the Pentagon with supposedly the right credentials, whether they are retired generals, academics, or defense contractor executives. And where has it gotten us? He believes, and I humbly agree, that it's time to give someone with dust on his boots the helm. A change agent, someone with no vested interest in certain companies or specific programs or approved narratives. My only special interest is the warfighter. Deterring wars, and if called upon, winning wars by ensuring our warriors never enter a fair fight. We let them win, and we bring them home. Like many of my generation, I've been there. I've led troops in combat. I've been on patrol for days. I've pulled a trigger down range, heard bullets whiz by, flex-cuffed insurgents, called in close air support, led medevacs, dodged IEDs, pulled out dead bodies, and knelt before a battlefield cross. This is not academic for me. This is my life. I led then, and I will lead now. Ask anyone who's ever worked for me or with me. I know what I don't know. My success as a leader, and I very much look forward to discussing my organization's successes at Vets for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done. But my success as a leader has always been setting a clear vision, hiring people smarter and more capable than me, empowering them to succeed, holding everyone accountable, and driving toward clear metrics. Build the plan, work the plan, and then work harder than everyone else around you. I've sworn an oath to the Constitution before, and if confirmed, I will proudly do it again. This time, for the most important deployment of my life.
Secretary of Defense.
I pledge to be a faithful partner to this committee, taking input and respecting oversight. We share the same goals: a ready, lethal military, the health and well-being of our troops, and a strong and secure America. Thank you for the time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hegseth. Before we begin with member questions, I would like to remind my colleagues that, consistent with the bipartisan staff agreement from December, and in concert with exactly how this committee dealt with the last Secretary of Defense nominee, each member will be recognized for one round of 7 minutes to question the nominee. Out of respect for the time of all members of this committee, the time limits will be tightly enforced. We've now been here 45 minutes, and I think we've done very well with the time. But at this point, I will begin my questioning of the nominee. Mr. Hegseth, you and your family have endured criticism of your nomination since it was announced in November.
Here we go.
Let's get into this allegation about sexual assault, inappropriate workplace behavior, alcohol abuse, and financial mismanagement during your time as a nonprofit executive.
I'll stop this right now. They almost a good majority of the senators will harp on all of those things or one of those things. It's very interesting. You gotta You got to drink some water like after that. I need to go get some. I'll be right back. Let's go listen to Mr. Wicker of the chairman.
I should
or
know
the chairman.
that the majority of these have come from anonymous sources in
Chairman of this hearing,
liberal media publications. But I want to give you an opportunity to respond to these allegations, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that opportunity. You are correct. We undertook this responsibility with an obligation to the troops to do right by them for our warfighters. And what became very evident to us from the beginning, there was a coordinated smear campaign orchestrated in the media against us. That was clear from moment one. And what we knew is that it wasn't about me. Most of it was about President Donald Trump, who's had to endure the very same thing for much longer amounts of time. And he endured it in incredibly strong ways. So we, in some ways, knew it was coming. We didn't understand the depth of the dishonesty that would come with it. So from story after story in the media, left-wing media, we saw anonymous source after anonymous source based on second or third-hand accounts. And time again, stories would come out, and people would reach out to me and say, you know, I've spoken to this reporter about who you really are, and I was willing to go on the record. But they didn't print my quote. They didn't print any of my quotes. Or, I've worked with you for 10 years, or I was your accountant, or I was your chief operating officer, or I was your board member, or I was with you on 100 different tour stops for Concerned Veterans for America. No one called me. No one asked about your conduct on the record or off the record. Instead, a small handful of anonymous sources were allowed to drive a smear campaign, an agenda about me, because our left-wing media in America today, sadly, doesn't care about the truth. All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me. And why do they want to destroy me? Because I'm a change agent and a threat to them, because Donald Trump was willing to choose me, to empower me, to bring the Defense Department back to what it really should be, which is warfighting. So I'm willing to endure these attacks. But what I will do is stand up for the truth and for my reputation. False attacks, anonymous attacks, repeated ad nauseum, printed as nauseum, as facts. We have provided to the committee, Mr. Chairman, and I know you're going to share, on-the-record statement after on-the-record statement from people who have served with me, worked with me at Fox News, Concerned Vets, Vets for Freedom, you name it, from the top of the chain to the bottom, who will say, I treat them with respect, with kindness, with dignity. That's men, that's women, that's black, that's white, that's every background. I have prided myself as a leader of respecting people, being professional. That is the balance of mine. I'm not a perfect person, as has been acknowledged. Saved by the grace of God, by Jesus and Jenny. I'm not a perfect person, but redemption is real. And God forged me in ways that I know I'm prepared for. And I'm honored by the people standing and sitting behind me, and look forward to leading this Pentagon on behalf of the warfighters. Thank
you, Mr. Hegseth. And frankly, I'm sure there are millions of Americans watching who would agree that they've experienced that same sort of redemption. So I do appreciate that. I realize that it involves a little bearing of the soul, but thank you for that. Now let's talk about top-line defense spending. I have a plan. I think you've read it. I've issued another plan, Freedom's Forge, which you've also had a chance to look at. And you have noted correctly that the current trend line of defense spending falling below 3% of our GDP is a threat to national security. You also said building the strongest and most powerful military in the world must be done responsibly, but it cannot be done on the cheap. You still agree with that, do you not?
Yes, sir, I do.
Tell us what you think about, particularly about my plan to make the Defense Department less bureaucratic, less top-heavy, cut out some of the bureaucracy and layers, make it more friendly to startups and to new ideas, contained in my 20 or so page white paper, Defending Freedom's Forge.
Senator, I've had a chance to review the Forged Act, that paper. Those are precisely the kinds of ideas that need to be pursued. And I look forward to working with this committee to ensure we cut the red tape, we incentivize innovation, we rebuild the defense industrial base, cut out the bureaucracy, all the things that are preventing the platforms and the tools from getting rapidly from our great defense companies here that should, and those that want to compete, into the hands of warfighters. But past his prologue on this, sir, and I would just look at what President Trump did after the drawdowns of lead from behind under President Obama. President Trump rebuilt our military. He didn't start wars, he ended them, and he didn't allow wars to start on his watch. We've had the same kind of defense cuts under the Biden administration. And so, look, I would present to the committee the reputation of President Donald Trump and me coming alongside him to ensure we have peace through strength by rebuilding our military, investing as necessary. Going under 3%, Mr. Chairman, is very dangerous.
Okay, we got 45 seconds. Tell us, in that point, get us started at least talking about deterring China in the Indo-Pacific.
It starts with priorities. The 2017 National Defense Strategy was the first step in reorienting away from simply entanglement in the Middle East, which our generation knows a lot about, and reorienting the behemoth that is the Pentagon toward new priorities, specifically the Indo-Pacific. So that strategy has started and was barely followed through on under the Biden administration. So we're going to start by ensuring the institution understands that as far as threats abroad, the CCP is front and center, also obviously defending our homeland as well.
Thank you very much, Senator Reid. You're recognized.
Okay, okay, cool. I figured that that'd be a great place to end it here for the YouTube stream, just to get both of these stories out there. I didn't want to make this too long. I'm gonna clip these out from my Twitch channel at Kicking It with Timmy B, also YouTube at Kicking It with Timmy B. I'm gonna clip these upcoming segments here of the hearing, because a lot of these are very, very they're like, it's insane communication going on in the battle between these folks, and how you see what people think, what qualifies a person to become a Secretary of Defense of the most powerful military in the world. It's insane to think about. It's insane to think about. And this man right here is like, he's super close. I think he's probably going to get it. He's had some budget issues with some kind of company that he's helped make or helped start up. They talk about the infidelity issues that he's had, and they bring up some things with the VA and for veterans, and then they ask him ultimately, like, can we trust you to understand when you're given unlawful order, like and a legal order from Donald Trump? Like, Donald Trump would be giving this guy an illegal order to go, like, you could just I think the context she was getting at is if Donald Trump would order Pete Hegseth to use the military on civilians or something like that, or just an illegal act or whatever. It's just, oh man. But the question has to be put out there, because it's like, hey man, if you see how close people are, that can become a liability, or when things can hit the fan and you need clear, precise, and accurate information. And these folks, Donald Trump and this man here, Pete Hegseth, will need to be clear and concise, because they're going to have a lot of information and they're going to have a lot of power to make moves. So making sure that, Donald Trump's not having this guy go out and go do something. Will he, if that were to ever happen, which that's not going to happen, I hope not, would he make the choice to be like, hey, sir, I can't do that? But that's the lady from the CIA. That's Alyssa Slotkin. That was towards the end of it. But I just wanted to pretty much just give a little summary for, folks who are going to watch this on the replay. But anyway, it's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. Let's get Pete Hegseth in there, Secretary of Defense of the United States of America. It's January 14th, 2025. If you enjoyed this, please consider hitting the like, share, and the subscribe button. And I'll keep you updated with more. And I'll have these clips out there on the channel. So, all right. And there. Is it right here? Oh, it's not actually. It's right here. Actually, I didn't even know there was people here.
Recognized.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin my questioning, I would like to make 3 requests. First, many of my members would...
We're going to go skip by Mr. Reed real quick. I'm going to end the YouTube stream with, who do we have here? Senator Tom Cotton. We gotta get this guy in here. He is interesting gentleman. There, Senator Tom Cotton. He's got an interesting accent and everything like that. Let's see what he has to say. Tom Cotton. Senator Tom Cotton talking to AOC was so funny.
With over 20 days in his record, Cotton
about
for some, and now I'm honored to recognize Senator Cotton for 7 minutes.
Mr. Hegseth, let's continue on this line of questioning about what's sometimes referred to as women in combat. I think that phrase is something of a misnomer.
Yes, and women in combat. That's like a big, I totally forgot about that. That is a big topic with a lot of folks in the Senate right now. Let's get back into it. This is Tom Cotton.
Many members of this committee have served in combat in the last 25 years, to include women and men. I'm sure all those men served with women, whether they were military police officers or they were pilots or whether they were intelligence analysts or medics or what have you. You served. I assume you served with women who were on the front lines as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And were those women anything other than skilled, brave, and honorable in their service?
They were some of the best soldiers I worked with.
So women have been serving in combat for a long time. Women have even been serving in combat units like infantry battalions for a long time in roles like medics or mechanics or what have you. So what we're talking about here specifically is women in ground combat roles in jobs like infantrymen or artillerymen or special forces. Until about 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. Under Secretary Panetta, those roles were opened up to women to serve in. Has President Trump indicated at all that he plans to rescind or alter that guidance?
You're correct to point out, Senator, that these are the decisions that the Commander-in-Chief will have the prerogative to make. He has not indicated to me that he has plans to change whether or not women would have access to these roles. However, I would point out, ensuring that standards are equal and high is of importance to him and great importance to me. Because in those ground combat roles, what is true is that the weight of the ruck on your back doesn't change. The weight of the 155 round that you have to carry doesn't change. The weight of the 240 Bravo machine gun you might have to carry doesn't change. And so whether it's a man or a woman, they have to meet the same high standards. And Senator, in any place where those things have been eroded or in courses, criteria have been changed in order to meet quotas, racial quotas or gender quotas, that is putting a focus on something other than readiness, standards, meritocracy, and lethality. So that's the kind of review I'm talking about, not whether women have access to ground combat.
Okay, so thank you. So you expect no change to that guidance, but as you point out, in these specific jobs, there are irreducible physical demands. We expect our intelligence analysts and our mechanics to be physically fit in the military, but it's different when you're in the infantry or the artillery. You just mentioned a few things. Let me point it out. An artillery shell weighs almost 100 pounds. An Abrams tank round weighs around 50 pounds. The M240 Bravo machine gun with its tripod weighs almost 50 pounds. The average weight of a full kit, ammo, water, commo, body armor for a soldier is over 100 pounds. Nothing you can do can change any of those things, right? That is
Speaking
physical
facts.
reality.
Go ahead. Yes, Senator. And I would say the requirements to handle those things in a ground combat unit, as far as standards, can look different than those of a medic or a drone pilot. And so it's not that it has to be the same standard throughout, it's standards to maximize efficacy of that particular position.
Yes, sir.
Let me read a quote
Let's
here
go.
from one Army officer. While it may be difficult for a 120-pound woman to lift or drag 250 pounds, the Army cannot artificially absolve women of that responsibility. It may still exist on the battlefield. The entire purpose of creating a gender-neutral test was to acknowledge the reality that each job has objective physical standards to which all soldiers should be held, regardless of gender. The intent was not to ensure that women and men will have an equal likelihood of meeting those standards. I assume, based on your testimony, you agree with that Army officer?
Absolutely. The standards need to be the same, and they need to be high, and they need to be set by the people closest to the problem set, closest to the understanding of what is required by that job. Commanders, commanding officers, and COCOMs and elsewhere who understand the reality of what they face, that's the feedback we should get. That's what should be enshrined and enforced, and no other set of political prerogatives. When I talk about removing politics, ideological or political prerogatives should contribute to those determinations, nothing other than the execution of the mission.
Thank you. For the record, that Army officer was Captain Kristen Griest, the Army's first female infantry officer and one of its first female Ranger School graduates. One final point, you said they need to be objective, gender neutral, and high. That's because the demands are, in fact, very high. The current physical fitness test for the Army has a minimum 2-mile run of 22 miles. Run.
Right.
And I want the reporters to know that I'm putting run in air quotes, because 22 miles at 2 miles is not running. It may be jogging. It's probably walking fast.
Right, exactly. You got to run. You have to run. You have to be sweating.
22 minutes.
You got to run.
We've got a big audience here. Many of them seem to be patriotic supporters of you, Mr. Hegseth. Some of them seem to be liberal critics of you. I would note that it's only the liberal critics that have disrupted this hearing. As was my custom during the Biden administration, I want to give you a chance to respond to what they said about you. I think the first one accused you of being a Christian Zionist. I'm not really sure why that is a bad thing. I'm a Christian. I'm a Zionist. Zionism is that the Jewish people deserve a homeland in the ancient Holy Land where they've lived since the dawn of history. Do you consider yourself a Christian Zionist?
Senator, I'm a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel and its existential defense, and the way America comes alongside them is a great ally.
Thank you.
Folks are going to have a big issue with it because folks have issues with Zionism and Christianity. It's just like, it seems like a pretty stand-up kind of guy.
Another protester, and I think this one was a member of Code Pink, which, by the way, is a Chinese Communist front group these days, said that you support Israel's war in Gaza. I support Israel's existential war in Gaza. I assume, like me and President Trump, you support that war as well, don't you?
Senator, I do. I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas.
And the third protester said something about 20 years of genocide. I assume that's our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Do you think our troops are committing genocide in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Senator, I do not. I think our troops, as you know, as so many in this committee know, did the best they could with what they have. We're not the outcomes, and tragically, the outcome we saw in Afghanistan under the Biden administration put a stain on that, but it doesn't put a stain on what those men and women did in uniform, as you know full well, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. At this point, I ask unanimous consent to offer to the record